Thank you. Allow me to whet your palate with some contemporary art. What is that? How is that considered art? It's a bunch of polka dots. Who let that be considered art? As a contemporary artist, I get asked these questions quite often. In fact, when my grandparents first came to one of my art performances where I was putting eggshells into a sculpture, later that night one of them came up to me and said, "So you call this art, huh?" And at that moment, my little artist heart was a little crushed. But now, I myself wonder, why does contemporary art get this sort of stigma and somewhat of a bad rap? To understand, let's go back a couple hundred years. Most art before the 19th century was commissioned by wealthy patrons and institutions. And the purpose of art was mainly to be beautiful and narrative. But after the Industrial Revolution, the ideals of realism shifted, and artists began to create artwork that was more about their own lives, for themselves, thinking, their own thoughts. So, such artists include, brace yourselves, Monet, Renoir, Degas, and Van Gogh. Can you believe that at this time, this type of artwork was considered on the edge and unattractive? What was once ostracized is today commercialized. You can pick this up at Target later. Artists began to deviate further and further from these realistic and traditional notions and began to make more work that was abstracted and shifted, which is where we are now in contemporary art. So, how do we digest contemporary art and join the Insiders Club? Let's start with a very important topic: soccer. Let's say you've never seen the sport or any sport like it ever before. In an unfamiliar place in the world, you stumble across a field and see a bunch of children playing in the dirt, kicking a ball. You watch perplexed and might have questions like, what in the world are they doing? How is this a game? Who let this become a game? Then a friend comes and tells you all about how this is an amazing sport. They tell you about the intricacies of the players, the plays, the coaches, etc. You then come to realize that this is a legit game and realize that, there's purpose and depth in it. Contemporary art is a sport in itself. It has specific players or artists, important plays or exhibitions, and knowledgeable coaches or curators. I am categorizing contemporary art as artwork that is avant-garde and on the edge. Oh, holy smokes, what's going on here? We're going to be having a great exciting happening, and this is going to help it to become amazing. So that's what the fog's about. All right. So contemporary art can be very hard to understand, and it may take the bending of both audience and viewer. Some ways that the artists can help the viewer get more out of the work is through some particular help aids, such as video interviews, Q&A handouts, detailed text panels, providing additional information for the viewer. Another way that artists can help assist the viewer is by considering a specific type of art, making a specific type of art that I am dubbing as inclusive contemporary art. Inclusive contemporary art has the power to promote deeper meaning, memorability, and value within the viewer. This art highly considers the everyday person, their perception and participation with or in the artwork. It wants to bring the everyday audience back into the work instead of keeping them at a distance. To define some inclusive contemporary art, I want to share a couple examples. One is Rivane Neuenschwander's I Wish Your Wish. Envision walking into a gallery space where 10,000 silk ribbons line all the walls. They hang vertically down, and on the ribbons is a wish. And there's all different types of wishes. So as the audience, you're able to go and choose your own wish, take the ribbon, and tie it to your wrist, in exchange for scribbling your own wish on a piece of paper and then inserting it into the hole where you got the ribbon. This artwork physically stays with the viewer outside the gallery walls for days, even weeks, prompting them to think back on the experience that they took and left. Another example is one of my all-time favorite pieces by Olafur Eliasson called The Weather Project. This piece was in the Tate Modern in London, and the whole ceiling was covered with mirrors with a bright half sun that reflected in the mirrors became a full sun. What was so amazing and brilliant with this work was its site specificity. I can hear the artist now thinking, if I were in London, what would I want to see? How about the sun? Here they are, basking away. In each of these artworks, the everyday person was able to access the work and draw their own meaning and purpose from it. Like these pieces, as an artist, my goal is to try and create artwork that transcends boundaries of race, age, gender, and religion. The inclusive artwork I created called We Revolve Ceaseless is currently on exhibit at the BYU Museum of Art. You should go check it out. You only have 3 more weeks, okay? So in this piece, I built an 8-foot, 450-pound rotating kaleidoscope. Entering the space, the viewer comes into the work, and they see these video projections that are reflections. And the videos are of the day and night cycle of the moon and sun. The viewer's own shadow is cast within the projections, and they're able to see themselves within the outside mirrors. The person sees that there's an inside to this scope, and they can actually put their whole head inside. And there are these beautiful, mesmerizing images, which is of a life cycle. Also, as they have their head inside, you can look down and actually see your own image reflected infinitely. You gotta go. All right, now you've seen some examples of inclusive contemporary art, but you might still be wondering, that's nice, but what do I get out of it? I like to offer 4 quick tips for getting a more meaningful, memorable, and valuable contemporary art experience. First, do your homework. Thinking back on those realist days of art for beauty's sake, most audiences could just walk up to an artwork and be figuratively fed, even spoon-fed. But today, contemporary art wants you to feed yourself from the work. It asks you, the observer, to dig, investigate, and question. Before going to an exhibit, do some work. Look up the exhibition you're going to, research the artists online, and maybe even the curators, to see what the background and intentions are that they have. This will provide a better platform for you as you interpret the work that you're about to see. Second, take your time. Most people only spend 3 seconds with an artwork. How do you know if anything's good if you're only with it for 3 seconds? So you need to spend some time with the work. An example of this is when I was teaching at BYU, I had this great class of non-art students, and I had this assignment where my students were instructed to look at one piece of artwork in the Museum of Art on campus for a full 30 minutes, which might sound very intense and crazy. But semester after semester, their experiences were transformative, and they really gained more information about the work because of the time. Third, ask good questions, just like on a date. While looking at an artwork, instead of asking, "What's that? My 5-year-old could make that," it could be rephrased to, "Why do I think this is absurd? What could the artist be intending with this work? What meaning could I get out of the work for myself?" Most, if not all, contemporary art, there is no meaning or a right answer. Only you know what an artwork means to you, and every person's perception is different. Lastly, is to acknowledge all artwork. And also to give yourself permission to not like or understand a piece. A perfect example of this is in the movie Mona Lisa Smile. In this film, Julia Roberts plays an art history teacher in the 1950s of a group of privileged and very intellectual college women. One scene is when she takes her students on a field trip to a studio where an original Jackson Pollock is revealed. At this time, this is very contemporary art. Roberts walks up to the painting in awe with what she sees, and is just enchanted. Behind her, the students somewhat snicker at the painting and whisper, "I hope we don't have to write a paper about it." Roberts responds with the perfect line. She says, "Do me a favor. Do yourselves a favor. Stop talking and look. You're not required to write a paper about it. You're not even required to like it. You are, however, required to consider it." And so it's with the act of consideration, taking your time, asking good questions, and having more knowledge through research that will give you a better platform to be able to engage and be included with contemporary art, specifically inclusive contemporary art. Now, what I'd like to do is if all of you would be willing to participate in an inclusive contemporary art experience, if you could first take out your phone for me and turn on the flashlight. I'm going to grab mine. Don't worry. Okay. Does everyone have your lights? Oh, you look beautiful! This is awesome. We didn't get to practice with 600 people. Okay, so now I would like you to take your hand and kind of cup it with your thumb and your index finger, and so that there's like a little hole, and put that on your flashlight over your light, okay? Can you do that? Put that over your light. If you have your little fingers tight enough, it should create a beam of light. That's what we're looking for, is a beam of light. You can kind of see mine. Can you kind of see mine up here? Yeah, I see some beams out there. Perfect. Okay, so we have these light beams, and if you could move them to the left, your light beam, yeah, and then move them to your right. And now together, let's create a circle. So let's create like a small circle and a large circle. Let's look up at the ceiling. You can see this beautiful, almost wave of light. You are creating that, all of you together. Beautiful. Okay, let's put our phones away and turn the flashlight off. Thank you. With this activity, everyone's presence was important. This piece would be quite different without you. When my grandmother first saw the kaleidoscope, We Revolve Ceaseless, she put her whole head inside and was in there looking around for quite some time. And then as she came out of the exhibit, with tears welling in her eyes, she looked at me and she said, "Aundrea, I am in complete awe of this piece. As I was looking inside, I felt like the universe was being created, and it was transforming and evolving before my eyes. I felt something. Inclusive contemporary art is about creating this type of meaning, this memorability and value for the everyday person. This sweet little woman wasn't an art world insider, but she was able to get something out of it. And I hope today you were able to also have a meaningful, memorable, and valuable experience. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.